What do you think of the Walz pick? A little surprising. I think it's kind of stupid. My first initial reaction was, okay, they were going to go Shapiro, Pennsylvania, because it's a battleground state. Some call it the Keystone State. But maybe because they didn't do that, it's because Minnesota is going to be harder for them to steal. My brother lives in Minnesota. I know people from Minnesota, and that's a red state. Minnesota is a red state. Election fraud is rampant. Pretty sure they stole it in 2020. I think they're going to have a tougher time stealing it, and they know it, and that's why they did this. Because the pick, I don't think, he's got so much baggage. It doesn't make much sense to me.
So I noticed last week, I think it was last week and maybe a bit of the week before, that it was like every day, every 24 to 48 hours in the news cycle, there was a new torso of the week for Kamala to be attached to. And the news cycle would like pump up Pete Buttigieg for like 24 to 48 hours. And then it would be Walz, and then it would be Shapiro, and then it would be someone else. And it was like they were trying to see which one actually got the response from the audiences that they wanted or something. They were just like testing out each one. And I don't know that they actually were. I kind of wonder if the media got played a bit on the shopping for Kamala's VP pick. And it might have been a fairly smart play where they were stealing a book from Trump's page and hyping up the VP pick by all these leaks and all of these leads saying, oh, she's meeting with these people. It's been rumored that so-and-so from her camp is having dinner over here at so-and-so's. You know, all that kind of stuff ended up feeding the intrigue. And I think it might have been a smart play by the Kamala campaign. And I think that Walz might have always been the person she was looking for. And I do recall coming across an article early on in the VP sweepstakes or whatever they were that made the case for Walz, and it highlighted the background connections between Kamala's group of people, Obama's group of people, and Walz's group of people, and that there was a lot of familiarity there, and there were a lot of networks there. And they were saying, look, it's going to be this person because there's already this established relationship there that's so substantial, and there's a lot of money that has gone back and forth with these people. So it's going to be him. And I dismissed it at the time because, one, I barely know who Walz is. But two, I looked at the article and I saw a clip of him in the article, like interacting with people and looking so incredibly awkward and unnatural and like someone you would want to get as far away. He reminded me of the cringy, creepy manager that comes into your franchise store and takes over for a day and speaks really nice to certain people, but then is like super cutthroat. And you know that if you don't have whatever food item set out to thaw at the right time, he's going to fire you like that day. You know, like, I don't know if you guys ever worked a franchise job like that, but like when the regional manager would come in, they would like have the big smile and they would like pour sugar on the customer, but then turn around to the staff. Yeah, and they were just like ruthless. Yeah, and you never wanted to be on shift when the regional manager was in the store because you could lose your job for the most simplest of things, right? And he reminded me of that, and I just took a glance at him, and I was like, this guy's a bad pick. There's no way she's going to put him on the ticket, and then she did. Yeah. And I still think it's a bad pick, and I told you guys before the show that to me it's the kind of pick that on paper you can make a good argument for, but when it comes to activating it and implementing it, it fails. And it fails for a number of intangibles. It fails because of circumstances. It just doesn't work right, even though on paper in the boardroom, you could kind of make a case for it. And you see that happen with athletes sometimes where there's like this athlete makes all the sense as a player in this team, and then they go to that team and it's just a disaster.
It doesn't work.
And you look back and you're like, why did they ever think that would work? But at the time, it looks like it would, and you can rationalize it to yourself. And with Walz, I think some of the things that are that make him work for her, such as the past relationships, the money, the union endorsement, the leftist groups that they both interact with and are popular with, donors are both popular with, et cetera, him delivering Midwest votes and her needing to strengthen up that section of the country, especially after Trump strengthened up his performance in that section of the country with the J.D. Vance pick. So this election is going to be very competitive in that region. It can make sense for that reason, but the obvious thing that there are downsides with him are just the way he comes across on camera and to people. There's all these scandals that he has, the fact his last name is Walz, which is constantly going to remind people of the border every time that you mention his name, and Trump's going to be able to constantly loop back to the border anyway because of Kamala. So he can just bounce between both of them, bringing up the border, and it never quite exits your mind. And then the summer riots, he can just over and over again destroy Walz for everything he did during the summer riots and what he didn't do. I mean, just on and on and on and on. These are obvious things that make him a bad pick, and yet she chose him. And I know I'm hogging the mic. Let me just say one more thing, that we were talking about this on Defecting. We were looking at polls, and I know the polls are fake, and the polls are created to create news. The news the polls are creating, as concerns Kamala replacing Biden, are that she is marginally better than Biden on the ticket. At best. At best, she's marginally better to have on the ticket than Biden was. And yet they went through all of this to get him off of the ticket and to insert her. And what did they gain? Like 1.2% so far after like 3 weeks? It's not the gain you want. And then she adds this VP pick. I'm sure the polls will reflect some kind of boost initially and whatnot. I wouldn't be surprised to see the polls made to show her ahead by a few percentage points for a while. But when you replace a candidate at the top of the ticket in the way they did, what you want is like 3 weeks later them to have like a 5-7 point lead. You want it to be this big turnaround.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, John, you're probably maybe more familiar with the name because, like you said, I mean, you're obviously in that general region. But like Kyle said, I mean, we do a political show several days a week, and we write about this shit on our personal time. We all dig into the info war constantly, and this guy was not on my radar at all, like in any way. So that's why it was initially a little surprising to me, just because I was kind of looking at Shapiro too. I did think, as an aside, it was hilarious that Trump kind of has the current iteration of Democrats bent over an ideological barrel when it comes to Jews, because he literally attacked them for not picking Shapiro and said it was because he was Jewish and the Democrats didn't want to. Do I think that's why they didn't pick him? No. But like, what are they supposed to say to Trump saying that? They're the ones who created the rules that we're not allowed to talk about any sort of attacked or protected class, especially that one. So when Trump comes out and he's like, you're not being very fair to the Jews by not picking Shapiro, they just can't respond to that sort of argument. So they don't respond to it, which the silence is deafening. In terms of the pick, I think that the fact that I didn't feel much about it at all when it was announced demonstrates that it was a total dud. And I had the overwhelming feeling over the last couple days looking through headlines and, scraping the Politicos and the Hills of the world. And they've got their 15 headlines about why this was such a great idea and all that kind of stuff. No normies know who this guy is. Like, nobody knows who it is. So at best, it was a totally neutral move by literally the least popular candidate in the last 20 years in American politics is Kamala Harris. She picks a guy who at best is nothing. And I'd written about yesterday, once you start digging into him, then it's all bad, right? Like, it'd be different if the surface level was this really impressive fool's gold, where years ago I could have seen pre-COVID a Gavin Newsom being like that. Like, oh, he's from this impressive family, he's the governor of California, like he's got this roaring economy, circa 10 years ago. Yeah. His reputation was destroyed with COVID. But with Walz, you're like, okay, a generic old white guy? Like, that's what the country sees. It's ironic because she's the diverse candidate who's replacing the old white guy. So I see this as a pandering pick to the old white guy segment of the Democratic Party, which is ironic for somebody like as progressive as her. But then when you peel away any layers of the onion, you just see an extreme, like I would call him a radical extremist in terms of leftist rhetoric. He is an extremist. I mean, he's pretty much unapologetic. He doesn't try to couch his language. He just talks about abortion to the 9th month, burn down whatever fucking city you want to do. And I saw the meme going around of Trump's truth of all caps, thank you, with an exclamation point. And people had put it over images of burning Minneapolis, right? Minneapolis burning down in 2020. And it's like, this is where I often go in my own mind into patriot control. I don't know what's going on here. I'm just going to say, right now in the UK, we have extremely contentious social situations where the BBC is being protested for using mostly peaceful riots in headlines right now. Sorry, largely peaceful is the UK version of it. While the Harris campaign just installs one of the governors who cheered it all on, the epicenter of that shit in 2020. And I'm supposed to see this as a well-meaning, organic decision by a side that wants to distance themselves from extreme leftism. Like, this wasn't the move. So I guess it's good news. I don't think it was a good pick.
I almost wonder if this was the Democrat Party response to Trump picking Vance, a guy from Ohio, like a Midwest white guy.
Yeah.
This is them like, okay, well, any voters that he might sway, this is our response to him. But again, once you dig into him, there's nothing good about this guy in any way. It's like when you look at politics today, you have Trump who survived the assassination attempt. He's like, he's immortal in a lot of ways because of that whole scenario. And then the best that the Democrat Party can do is Kamala Harris and who's this guy? Like Walz? Like, it's
just some guy.
It doesn't strike a chord with me. It's not a big name. I don't know. It's just lame. It's boring. And he's got baggage.
Are they sinking this ticket on purpose?
Well, that's a hell of a name.